don't be lazy, and like if the day is hard and you don't want to go do it, like a lot of the times, I don't wake up, I don't flinging myself out of bed and I'm like, I can't wait to run 12 miles on a Wednesday morning before an entire day of work or we have a release. But it's like those are the moments where callous, like David Goggins talks about, callous your mind. Like you just have to, that shit has to make you numb and you just will yourself through it. And then anytime like hard stuff comes up in business that's not like physically hard, that helps you a little bit, you know?
Marcus, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Would love to start with Father McNally.
Oh
Who is
my God.
Father McNally?
Okay. I don't know if you know him, but okay. So I was junior year of college. That's crazy. You did your digging. That's awesome. Junior year of college, I was at a Jesuit school, St. Joe's in Philadelphia. And as just part of like the curriculum, you had to take at least one art class or like I don't know. There was a range of different things you could take. I just ended up in painting one. Um, and it was like an intro to painting class and took it with my best friend Tyler. And this man like changed my trajectory. I was like in a kind of bad headspace at that point, playing sport, like playing lacrosse there in school, junior year. A bit like I don't want to call it depression because it wasn't like diagnosed, just like foggy, bad headspace. And in painting one, and like very first thing, the way he set up the class was like, you paint whatever you want. There are no rules at all. And I was really kind of intrigued by that at first because I was like, okay, are we not going to learn like the basics of anything? He's like, I just want you to paint anything. So I got a naturally like pretty small canvas and was like trying to do super detailed paintings. Like obviously not very good at it, no practice. And he could see what I was doing. And by like the third class, he came over and he took the brush out of my hand and he walked me over to kind of his side of the classroom was where he did his huge paintings that he would sell. And he was like, I want you to like paint on bigger canvases and don't worry about the brush strokes. Don't worry about it being like fine and detailed and like, straight lines, everything. I just want you to like brush on this canvas and whatever comes out almost as an exercise. And I don't really know what he was getting at, and like to this day don't really know what he was getting at, but it was like this shift into like a release for me of like, then I would go there on Friday night, Saturday night, and just be the only one in the studio and just had access to all these like huge canvases and I could just paint anything. So I just started painting stuff and it was like therapeutic. And so I was in my head, I was like, this is kind of nice. So I started doing that and just like painting stuff, not even for grades. It was just, anything that I wanted to make. And so this guy, Father McNally, Jesuit priest, like would go on, I guess missions is what they're called, and overseas, and like I to this day think he was the smartest professor at that school, across any of the curriculum. He was just extremely well read, worldly, like had a ton of experience under his belt, and just understood like people and how to talk to them. And yeah, I think he just like pulled something out of me that I had no idea was in me, and it kind of got me into art, like my creative side, kind of opened that door because before it was kind of closed off, was just studying finance in school, hadn't really ever done anything all that creative like growing up. Yeah, he like opened that whole entire door for me. It was crazy.
What do you think happens when we release some creative energy into the world? I find the same thing when I do writing.
Yeah.
I write 750 words, stream of consciousness, and something is better after that occurs. Something gets released. What is going on there?
It's a good, like, that's a good question. I'm not all that sure. I've started to pick up writing a bit more myself and haven't painted in a long time, but I'm like doing more creative things now. So I feel that like while it's not painting, it's still coming out in other ways. And I'm sure you've noticed it in writing, like there are there are days specifically where you're just like flowing and it's so easy to get everything out. And then there's other days where it's like stop and start and you feel like you can't even get a thought out onto the paper. It was the same way in painting, but I don't know. It was just, I think it's like, it's a release of energy and a way to capture like what exactly is going on in your mind at that moment. And yeah, you can revise a painting, you can revise writing, but like at its core, it exists as you wrote it in that moment.
Mm.
And I think that's extremely special. And I think that's why art kind of touches and impacts people differently because while you may have written it in a certain headspace and feeling a certain way, someone else is feeling completely different, but interpreting what you put there for them to interpret, whether it's through writing or art. And now it's making them feel a certain way. So you like generated this thing, and it's now like you put energy into it, and then like somebody else is gleaning off of that, and now it's going to change their energy going forward. So I don't know. I think it's just like a kind of magical thing. Anybody who creates any form of art, it's just like I have so much respect for it now, whereas I didn't, really even pay that much attention to it before my original painting class with Father McNally.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy
yeah,
that one man could have such a profound effect by just pushing you to do a simple thing of being creative.
yeah.
Why do you think that creativity isn't taught in schools, and why don't you think we're given those tools?
Mm,
Because I feel like it's a system almost that
yeah,
we get pushed down.
yeah. It's interesting. The schooling system is interesting. I think any large undertaking, such as like educating a population, is tough because you're only good as the teachers and the curriculum. But it's something I've struggled with because I wasn't really good at school.
Mhm.
I don't think that I perform well in the this is how you have to think and this is what you have to memorize and this is how you have to test to be quote unquote good or like or as a benchmark for now you're going to excel because of your SAT score and where you went to college and what you studied. And outside of certain disciplines like obviously being a doctor and lawyer where you have to really, get your reps and like understand stuff like that. And I use business for example, like you can't really you can learn about business in the sense of like you can take your accounting class and understand credits and debits and how to balance, a balance sheet. But to take classes to build a business, it's just not possible. Like building a business is like raising a child. There is no roadmap. There's things you can do right, and like if you run across this, like people in the past have done this, and you might want to think about it like this. But it always felt so weird to me to be like everybody's taking these tests and standardized tests, and I understand why they're there. Like there is no real way to do it without having some sort of system in place, but it pigeonholes a certain type of thinker, a certain type of test taker, and everybody learns in a much different way. Like I'm a hands-on learner. I don't want to read the book or do homework and stuff like that. I'd rather like build something or be forced to like make something or it's like make it tangible. And I always struggled with, well, how does this apply to the real world? Because I don't think in my head, while I was probably ignorant back in the time and like naive, I was always thinking to myself, I'm not going to need this because I thought I had it all figured out and knew what I wanted to do. But I think it's hard. I mean, it's interesting. Like, and it's hard. But when the school system, I think, was originally set up, I remember looking into this, but it was a generally like we need people to be able to work during the Industrial Revolution and like systematically build the machine of like
Mm.
the United States, right? So it was teaching people to be operators of like factories and machines and stuff. And I'm not sure how much it's evolved outside of that, especially like kindergarten through like before like continuing education and like higher education of like colleges and stuff. But like that through high school when you start, it's very much like systemized and regimented. And it feels like creativity doesn't really have a spot there
Mm.
because if it's designed to make you, if it's designed to make you kind of like, this is gonna sound stupid, but like a cog in the machine, you're it's hard to make money in arts. So why put that much emphasis on it, right? If we want a productive population, why put any emphasis on arts if like a very small percentage of artists, ever make money?
Mm.
And yeah, I think it just got kind of, probably not by design, just got lost in the process of like optimization a bit.
Mm.
And it's sad because I think there's a lot of people. I talk to my friends who are like, oh, I used to be so creative when I was younger and I don't do any of it anymore. And I don't fault them for it. It's like that's the product of the system. So how you change it, I don't know, but I wish it was pushed a bit more, or like given to people as like a way to just escape themselves, or like, you know, have a creative release in some way.
What
Yeah.
have you done to keep the childlike wonder of creativity alive in yourself?
At first it was painting, and then I think now it's more I just like like making things.
Mm.
And for me, um while I'm very much like in the business of like growing a business, it feels like there's a lot of creativity involved. And creativity, maybe not in the traditional sense, but like creative problem solving. So, say you have an idea for a certain piece you want to make. It's like, okay, well, what are the steps to make it? And then you, at least in my process, stumble down the rabbit hole of, well, what are the best possible highest end materials that could go into this piece? And then you work your way back from there. And it's like, okay, well, if the highest end, nicest materials are coming out of Italy from like a mom and pop mill that isn't going to sell to me, how can I like figure out a way to get my hands on it, And that kind of like creative problem solving and figuring out like, okay, then the product's made, like you have to sell it. So then that's a whole nother, okay, well, what's going to be the best way to like show people what this product is, and hopefully they want it themselves. Um, but I still do also get to do like physical creative stuff. Like creating physical products is fun. I've talked plenty of times like having somebody, for me, when I first started, having somebody spend money that they traded their life hours for
Mm.
because they want one of your products is an incredible feeling. But I think that the people making the products need to put more emphasis on like, if those people are trading their life hours for your product, make it good, right? Like, become obsessed with the details of your product so that like they don't have to worry about anything. And this is like, could go on to an entire business tangent of like why customer service is important, but people traded their hours for that product through money. Like, have decent customer service if they bought it and something messed up on the product you sold them. Like, just make it right. It's like the least you can do almost. And that's our kind of whole philosophy behind customer service is like, yeah, the customer is always right, whether they're wrong or not. And it's working out so far, but I imagine as we grow, we'll run into issues. But until then, we'll see what happens.
I think I stumbled across a tweet when doing research for this about a customer who was going on social media and talking about how happy they were with the customer service that
Mm.
you had given them. And you're like
Yeah.
I could see and sense how important it is to you.
Yeah, and it was me in the beginning dealing with the customer service, but now, it's generally just my brother, Sean, and as of recent, my sister as well, dealing with the support inbox. And while I might have like trained Sean in the beginning, and there were times when certain tickets would come across and it would be like, okay, well, what do you think we should do? And then he would do like the logical thing, but I'd say, no, well, we have to go a step further to make sure they're taken care of. And if it ends up we lose money on it, but they're taken care of, we're just going to do that.
Mm.
And so it kind of went against like traditional thinking of like ones and zeros. And let's make sure they're taken care of as like people and on an experience kind of like side of it, even if it ends up maybe we take a small hit on the product, it is what it is. I want them to be happy with the product and the experience overall. And so he gets it now. And then like my sister just kind of came on dealing with it, and she's like starting to learn like, oh, like it has to be done this way because it goes against kind of like the conventional like thinking of, you want to protect the business and revenue and stuff like that. And also too, like when nasty emails come across, it's like you have to be nice. Like you cannot fire back. You cannot be combative. It doesn't matter how mad you are. And if you can't handle it and you're too mad to handle it, send it to me. I'll take care of it because you just can't be like that.
Well, that goes to Meditations by Marcus
Mm.
Aurelius, one of your favorite books.
Favorite book. Yeah.
Why is that one of your favorites?
I read that. In probably 2019, I think. I was in like this weird kind of limbo here in the city, and I would just kind of read it whenever I had a chance. And I think it just kind of it was a point in my life where could go in a couple different directions, and I picked up the book on recommendation just through online. A lot of the books I'm like, okay, well, how many people do enjoy it, and then I'll end up reading it. But that had been on the list of a top of a lot of people's lists, and I was like, okay, there's got to be something here. And as I was reading it, I mean, he wrote it, and it's like it was never meant to be a book to read. It was his personal journal, right? So it's very, very specific to him and his experiences. But then as you're reading it, you can apply most of what he wrote in that journal to your life in some way, right? But here is this guy who's like in control of he has so much power at a young age, and he's so steadfast and like clear-headed. And so for me it was like that's a good way to go about life. Like you can have highs and lows like mentally, but you need to try to be pretty level-headed most of the time. Like you can be passionate but level-headed at the same time. So read that, and have read a couple other like stoicism focused books since. But yeah, his I've come back to twice. I'll probably read it again. I think I could flip it open right now and find a quote within 2 seconds that applies to like what I'm going through in a day to day.
Yeah, it's one of those special books where
Yeah.
you could open to any page, and it's linked below because it also played a pivotal role in my life as well.
Yeah.
It's like what you have so many layers to you, and I
Mhm.
want to try to unpack them as best I can. So
Mhm.
you have the running and lifting layer,
Yeah.
you have the creativity layer, you have the business layer, you have the mindset layer.
Mm.
And to me, when I'm trying to frame this conversation, I'm trying to embody all of them or some of them to the best of my abilities to help other people see the the bricks that you've laid for your own life
Mm.
and showcase that for people. So, I guess one place to potentially frame the conversation is the running and lifting aspect to you.
Mm.
And I find this in a lot of different people
Yeah.
who are trying to achieve great things is like they're dual citizens of the fitness world in that they want to run, they want to lift, and people have this. I see it in George Heaton as well. My
Yeah.
friend Hunter Weiss, Zach Pograb. Like there are people I don't
Yeah,
know.
you've named all people I've like communicated with specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool that this has come about and this is happening. But first off, how did that come to be? Why running? Why lifting? And how have you fueled them together?
Well, I started lifting in the gym, very sports specific lifting with like a personal train. I wouldn't call it personal trainers like a weird word because you have personal trainers that like are at big commercial gyms, and then you have like sports specific like biomechanic for sport type trainers, and that's what my trainer was when I was started in the gym at 16. So all of everything he programmed for me all through college was how can we be more explosive and do movements in the gym that are going to help uh, mimic movements that I would be on like doing on the field. And so running was very much not a part of well, I can't say that. It was completely different, right? So I'd lifting, it was always, explosive movements and, trying to put on size because you didn't want to get like kind of pushed around. And so for me, it was always like I remember freshman year of college, I just told myself like I want to be 225 pounds and just like thick, you
And
know, and
you're 6'3"
yeah,
or
6'2",
6'2"?
6'3".
Yeah.
Because then it'd be hard to, you know, push anybody around at that size. And never ended up hitting 225, by the way. But because I told my coach that like freshman year of college, I was like, I'm gonna because I walked into the facility at 175. I was like, I'm gonna be 225 pounds by senior year. And he was a big guy too. And I don't think he doubted me, but like getting that much size onto your frame while still like having to move and have some sort of cardio base, being a midfielder is gonna be hard. Um, and so it was like, yeah, super into lifting. And to this day, I think that's kind of like starting at 16 in the gym with my brother, both playing the same sport, both lifting to like we lifted together. So it was like natural competition of who's going to get stronger. So like these lifting sessions that I look back on are such fond memories for me, of going in at like 6 a.m. before high school, like because we went to high school together, would drive to high school, but we'd go to the gym first and just have these like crazy sessions of and like young and dumb trying to like max out every week. But yeah, I mean, so that was like the groundwork for just enjoying the gym, and just learning that over time, like anything, you can kind of transform the way you look and feel and like it'll help you in playing sports. So that was the focus, right? And then only running I did then was just strictly high intensity sprints. Because we had running tests when I got to college. There was like this, they were called 300s, but it was like 50 yards down and back 3 times. And God, those were horrible. Like they just made your legs feel like sand. So I did hammer those, and but I never did long distance. Like a long run for me back then was 2 miles.
Mm.
Um, and
And
I
you
hated it
couldn't
too.
you couldn't pass, or it was
I
very
couldn't.
difficult for
No,
12 minutes for 2 miles. It was very difficult for
yeah,
you.
we had this test that my coach would dangle or like hold over us, and it was the sub 12-minute 2 mile. And I tell you what, all 4 years of college, I never passed it once.
Wow.
Never passed it once. Fastest I ever ran, it was like a 12:30. And everybody on the team hated that test because it was just it was hard. Um, and one, I didn't really know how to train for it. Um, Plus two, all I wanted to do was put on size. So in
Mm.
my head, I was like, that's kind of counterintuitive if I'm just gonna start running all the time, which now I look back on, I just eat more. And but yeah, so didn't really ever distance run like that and trained that way all through college. And then I got out and was still lifting, but you go from having competition every single day from when you're young to through college, having some sort of like competitive, whether it's against your own teammates or like, you know, games, and then it just stops. And you're some people that's fine, but to me it was like, how am I going to fill this void of
Mhm.
like competition? And so back in 2019, I don't, do you mind if I segue
Of course.
into like longer distance running?
Please.
All right. Back in 2019, you know, I was out surfing with my buddy Tyler from the earlier story, and I felt like this weird nodule in my neck, and it ended up we get it tested, whatever, and it was thyroid cancer. And you know, before I knew that it was probably the best cancer to have, like as I was sitting in the doctor's chair as he told me it was like cancerous, you just obviously you start running through like so much stuff in your head. And so I had no research, didn't know anything about it, and didn't really learn much about it till a couple days later, but started kind of running just as a way to get out of my own head. I was like, it was just like, oh, it was so annoying just sitting in my, because I lived alone at the time. So I'm alone, you know, majority of the day. And you just have all these thoughts like spinning. Um, and until like we had the follow-up meeting I think it was like 1 or 2 weeks later, with the doctor to figure out like what's going to be best course of action to like, you know, get rid of it. Cause I was like, okay, well, some stuff online saying like chemo, some saying you can get it cut out, some saying you can inject like a radiated piece of something into it and it'll kill it off. And so in my head, I'm like juggling all this stuff and just needed a way to kind of like just get away from it. And I would just start running, just throw the headphones in, just like go out, start running. So then I started running kind of like 5-ish miles. Um, and then with like anything, it just like became a game to me in my own head. Like, can I run them? Can I run this faster next week?
Mm.
And then can we run it faster the week after? And end up signing up for the New York City Half Marathon. And then still had no idea how to train for it. So I got some plan from Hal Higdon, like advanced half marathoning or something, and did most of my miles way too fast. Like was not adhering to the 80% slow miles rule and got some overuse injuries, whatever. And then we raced the New York City Half. It was like horrible. Like I hated the experience. Just like a lot went wrong. Didn't hit my goal time. But I think that was like the switch of in my head of well, okay, you failed it, so now you have to go and and run this sub 130 before you can totally be done running if you want to be done running. And now it's like now we're in way too deep.
Well, I want to go back to the cancer piece
Yeah, yeah.
because how old are you when you find out you have cancer?
That's a good question. I was 23, I think.
So 23 years old,
24.
23 or 24, you find
Yeah.
out you have cancer. A lot of people are never going to experience that.
Mm.
What does that feel like? And where does your mind start running when you get that diagnosis?
Yeah, like, and I'll just preface like I don't want to make it like a sob story, like feel bad for me, because a lot of people hear cancer and it's immediately like, oh, you should feel bad for this person. Like this was the best type of cancer to have, and it was very easily treatable. I just didn't know it when I first got the diagnosis,
Mhm.
and so I was very much of the mindset of you hear cancer and it's like big, bad, scary thing.
Mhm.
First off, we caught it super early, and then it was a surgery, and still have the left half, and it's kicking. Like I'm not even on Synthroid, like synthetic hormone, and because it's overproducing, and my levels are back where I was pre removal of the right half. Um, and so like immediately my mind is just I think it went through like multiple stages. The first stage was the first day where I played the like woe is me card in
Mm.
my head. Because I've always tried to be very healthy and eat healthy and exercise, whatever, what they always try to tell you to do. So I was like, how is this even possible? I'm 24. I eat healthy. I don't drink. I don't smoke, never have. Like, how's this possible?
Yeah.
But I think I ended up coming to the realization that cancer is one of those things where it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
And like it really puts into perspective, like I think it's sped up my maturation process in my head of like, you have a finite window to try to do something here. And you better hurry the fuck up because you don't know when that shit's gonna be taken. You don't know how long you're gonna be sitting with all this energy, like ready to do shit and be motivated. And yeah, that shit was like, it still makes me emotional thinking about it because it's like, shit sped it up quick. Like start to panic, like I haven't done shit,
Mm.
you know? And that was like stage one. Stage two was like, fuck this thing. Like this shit ain't like that. I signed up for the half marathon when I knew I was prepping for surgery. I was like, this shit is nothing. Like it's not gonna hold me back from doing shit. Then stupidly, got surgery, like got surgery at NYU. My parents drove me back home to Virginia to recover at their house. And the next day, like 18 hours post surgery, I went to the gym and was like hitting the assault bike because I couldn't run. But I was like hitting the assault bike. I was like fuck this thing. I'm like, I do not care. I don't care if it's like painful, whatever. Like, and it was like so stupid at the time. Like, don't do that shit if you just had surgery. Looking back on it, ended up like getting a chest infection from it. Like, was on like heavy antibiotics. My surgeon was like, "Bro, what are you doing?" And then I like chilled out for a week or so. But yeah, I think it's just kind of that it like totally shifted my mentality of like, you got to go, man. Like you don't the clock's ticking for you to do something with your life.
Mm.
And listen, I mean, it's not to say like that's the response you have because some people might not want to do anything like in that way. They don't want to build like maybe they don't want to build anything, and that's fine. But to me, it was like if you want to build what you see in your head, you better speed it up because it could be this could be taken away from you tomorrow. You have no idea.
I think a lot of people have something in their head that they think they want to build someday,
Yeah.
but they never get the call of, yo, you could potentially die really soon.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think sometimes that's the biggest blessing of forced action.
Yeah.
And what could we say or what could we suggest to people to get to that place without having that call?
I don't know. I don't know if you can because the other thing that it did is it completely shifted my mindset away from caring about what anybody thinks about me.
Mm,
Like I don't care because at the end of the day, I'm living my life, experiencing my life like you are not.
mhm.
And what I want to accomplish has no like bearing on your life essentially. And so like that that feeling that you would get of worrying about like, oh, I wonder what people think about me posting on social media or like is it cringe? All that shit goes out the window.
Mm.
Or at least it did for me. And I think once that switch was flipped, I just started to do everything that I enjoyed or that I found happiness in. Um, that was a net positive for me. And yeah, like I don't know if you can flip that switch without there being an external force is the problem. Because I think that generally even before then I was pretty disciplined in how I went about things. But I think that you become accustomed to the voice in your head that says like, "Oh, we have time." Like it's not perfect right now, so let's wait till it's perfect to start. But it's not ever going to be. And so you kind of just have to throw yourself into the fire and figure it out as you're going.
Two things that have helped me is one, having a birthday in the middle of the year,
Mm,
and two, the start of a new year.
mm,
They every time my birthday happens or the new year starts, I'm like,
mm.
am I on track? Is this going how I expect it to go? Am I living a life authentic to me? Am I building something that I want to be building?
Yeah.
And it's happened for a long time where that's been in my mind. Do you have any moments like that that you can reflect or that are in your head as like, all right, those are the check-in points?
Mm. You know, I think I enjoy New Year's not because it's like a huge celebration or anything, but more because it. I'm of I share the same mindset of a lot of people. It feels like a clean slate, and you can kind of reflect upon like, okay, well, where are we at now? It's a bit easier to kind of do a benchmark from like a business numbers standpoint. Like that's super easy to do, but from like a life standpoint, I I have like large uh overarching goals, but I don't break down as much into like a yearly thing.
Mm.
And it's kind of become less so broken down in that way after once I started being out on my own doing my own thing and not like working a corporate job because you're not really kind of pigeonholed into the same like time window. Like
Mm.
if I want to run maybe one A race a year. Like that year can start whenever I want it to start. It doesn't have to start, Jan 1. Um, and I think I have like larger goals that it's like the smaller goals would be, start a large goal, step back, and what are the smaller things that you have to hit? And that generally ends up just coming out to daily things you have to do. And so that's just kind of how I've built my days. So at the end of like, 2022, you step back, you look at the year, see what you've accomplished. But, you know, and when it comes to like setting new goals, I don't know, it's it's good, I think, to reflect and see how far you've come, but you can't spend too much time there. You get a little bit, you get a little soft and complacent. And so it's like you just got to keep the foot on the gas and just, yeah, it might lead to a burnout. I don't know, but that's my whole mindset of it. Just like every day, you got to get a little bit better, even if the whole day goes to shit and you hit your run that morning, still got a little bit better.
Mhm.
It's not always gonna be perfect. So just on a day, I kind of go super long term and then on a daily. That's how I look at it.
I love that. Have you what have been the most pivotal moments in the past 3 years from building Mint in New York, and how have those moments shaped you and shaped who you've become?
I guess they're starting moving my first like 15 orders and like selling. That was our first drop. Was like 15 orders sold out. And that was just as I was living at my parents' house. Like I was with my parents during the beginning of COVID. Um, and it was like there might be something here moment. Um, and then second biggest would probably be December 2022. We have a pre-Christmas release. And leading up to this, I still don't have a warehouse releasing. I would commute back to my parents' house to release out of the garage in the basement. And
And that's in Virginia, right?
yeah, I get a FaceTime from my mom. A truck had dropped pallets in our like pallets of product in the driveway, and she's calling me like, "Wow, what am I supposed to do with this?" We didn't have like a pump jack like pallet mover. So she, bless her heart, like will never, I'll forever be indebted to her. Like broke the pallets down by hand, brought all the. It was supposed to rain, so she brought all of it into the garage, moved the car out of the garage, and brought it all into the garage because I was still in New York prepping stuff for the release.
Nothing like a mother's love.
Oh my god, yeah. Um, and she breaks that stuff down, but at the end of the FaceTime, she's like, "No more. Like this is it. This is the last time you're doing a release like this because if they keep getting bigger, there is going to be no room. You need to get a warehouse after this release." So that was a moment, and then the next month, signing the lease on our first warehouse in Jersey was a massive moment. Quitting my job, my full time job was a massive moment. Having my brother forego going to law school to work for me full time, and like us just building it together, massive. Um, yeah, I think the next probably huge milestone will either be like a revenue milestone or the move to a Texas warehouse. Just like from a square footage standpoint, like it'll feel much bigger. Um, that'll probably be next as like a massive moment, I would say.
And don't you have a partnership with Saucony?
I
Is that
do, yeah.
was that a
That
crazy?
kinda came out of left field. Kinda came out of left field last year. I got a DM from, like, their head of collaborations, Jason, legend. He, like, shot me a DM on Instagram, I think. He's like, "Seen you on my For You page, like, a couple times," or his maybe it wasn't For You page, it was, like, the Instagram version of the For You page.
Discover?
Yeah, yeah. And, he's like, "Would love to talk more." So I was like, "Shoot me an email. Like, that's sick." And I had just recently started running in their endorphin speed too, and I started to like it because I was training like pretty heavy at that point. And yeah, he shoots me an email. We start talking. And you know what? Big moment. Me, Sean, and Clay going up to Massachusetts to meet at the Wolverine headquarters. Wolverine's the parent company that owns Saucony and like a bunch of other brands, and meeting with the team, seeing like the foam testing and like all of the stuff that goes into it. Um, and sitting there kind of just spitballing ideas around me feeling extremely young compared to like a lot of the people in the room. Sean, my brother, like next to me, who's been like by my side since we were born, been like together ever since. And then Clay, who the backstory on Clay is I see this kid putting out insane like pieces that he's making on TikTok. And I'm like, okay, so he must like be in New York City, like working and doing this on the side or something. And so I shoot him a DM. I'm like, hey, are you in the city? Like, could we meet up? Like, do you have any interest in like coming to work for us?" And he's like, "I'm actually, I think he was a sophomore in college in Michigan."
Wow.
I was like, "Okay, well, the offer still stands. Like, I don't know if you want to do a winter internship or a summer internship, something, but we'd love to have you on the team." And I think it was a winter internship. He does it, and this kid is insanely talented. He just recently, like last night, posted a leather bag that he made where he vacuum formed his hand into the leather, and the whole idea of the bag is it's like his inspiration was boxing gloves and like beat up leather,
Mm.
and so it's like a punch in the bag. Like this kid is, like operating on a different level, and he's still only a junior in school. So, but he's been working with us part time ever since that internship, and so we're all sitting there like just crazy young. He's crazy young. Sean's young. I feel young, even though I'm getting older, and we're in these meetings like talking about shoes. And I mean, ever since I was a little young athlete, it's like you look at Michael Jordan and he's got the Jordans, and you're like, wow, having a shoe would be insane. And
Mhm.
so it was like a full circle moment for me. Even though we were starting on a lifestyle shoe and just recently went over our performance shoe with them, just totally like surreal in the moment. Yeah.
What did you see in Clay? Because a lot of people want to be recognized by their
Mm,
favorite creator or want to work with them in some
yeah.
sense, but you reached out to him. Why
Yeah.
exactly?
Um, I think it's rare to see one, he was documenting the process of how he was making things. And
Mm.
so for me, it gave me a glimpse into how he was viewing and thinking about each different piece. And it was all very thorough. And the other part of it too is that I think a lot of artists or people who make things are a bit worried about putting their stuff out there. I mean, even like a creator like you starting a podcast, like as soon as it's online, it's open to ridicule from the public forum.
Mhm.
And it can be a huge barrier mentally for a lot of people and hold them back from displaying, especially the raw version. I mean, this was raw, him making pieces, raw. And so I was like, okay, well, he's confident enough in his ability to display it
Mm.
in this way. And the way he's going about this process and being so thorough in his research of different like design aspects, I was like, that's very special, especially in what he was making. I just hadn't seen it anywhere else on my For You page. And maybe I'm sure there's people out there doing it, it just hasn't come across my For You page. And so I felt the need to reach out to him because I just wanted to pick his brain and then hopefully get him to be a part of the team. And it worked out perfectly. He didn't have an internship coming up. He didn't really want to go to a big fashion house because he just felt like he would just, you're put on the ground floor to make designs, and then ultimately you don't get to really be a part of like the business when you're in a huge fashion house like that. You obviously get the name, but he was more interested in just, you know, small group and just making pieces. And he has freedom to be as crazy as he wants in his like design process. I've never turned him down from if he has a crazy idea and it might be super hard to pull off. I'm always like, let's try. And then he has he has a tendency to over engineer things. So like we have a bag we're working on that he made, and man, this is technical, but he triple stitched everything. And like you're triple stitching stuff if like you're using it for like hardcore, so it doesn't rip and stuff. So I brought it to the manufacturer, and he's looking at it, he's like, this is triple stitched. And I'm like, yeah, like Clay, who works for us, just over engineers, and I love it. I love it because that is gonna add a layer of quality and durability to the piece. But yeah, I mean, he can try anything. I'm fine with it.
It sounds like a huge attention to detail, which I
Mm,
notice in your posts. I notice in the things you create as well.
mm,
It's like you're very attuned to the littlest things.
yeah.
When did that start for you?
I think for Minted New York, it I think started the attention to how it started like the attention to how the customer is going to perceive the item when they receive it.
Mm.
So it wasn't even physical touch points. It was I kind of backed into it of I'm someone that knows nothing about the brand and have the box in front of me of that contains the piece. Or maybe I know about the brand just through my personal socials. Like, how am I going to feel when I open it up? And what are the biggest pain points that most customers experience when buying a similar item? And I've stated this since the beginning of there are a lot of apparel brands that are started on social media. The barrier to entry is low, but it leads to the courageous customers that like give these brands a shot getting burned a lot of the time. And that was the original idea behind we got to ship as fast as humanly possible. Uh, because you would see these creator made brands or just like brands pop up on social media and then wouldn't ship products for like 6 months. One, the experience is shot already for the end user. Like you better be coming with some insane product, and insane detail and quality if they're gonna wait 6 months for it. Um, but yeah, so for us, it was like we're gonna ship it same day for the most part, and it's if you're in the US, it's gonna get to you like either next day or in 2 days, and so then it became like a detail quality on the actual pieces themselves, and a lot of that is just I spend a lot of time just digging into, like I said, like where can you get the best fabrics and accessories and trim and everything that goes into making the experience whole, you know? Um, yeah, it's just become an obsession at this point. I don't know. I think sometimes it's probably a bit too much and a lot of the stuff is overlooked by the end customer, but it makes me sleep well at night knowing like everything's sound on our end.
The packaging too
Mm,
is something that you've highlighted before and been like,
mm.
this is so important to me. I look at Apple as the gold standard for what's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, just Steve Jobs was obsessed with the packaging
Mm.
and the way that it, slow like when you buy an Apple product, it's slow releases. And I don't know if it was a talk that I read or something that he had written, but it was like it builds anticipation toward the product because it can't get the lid off
Mm.
very quickly. Um, and so that kind of reshaped just how I think about packaging in general. Like each experience is so different. Each person is at a completely different like moment in their life, like experiencing this. And while you want to keep it uniform, like you still want it to be unique and try to make it something that they haven't experienced from either like an apparel brand or just like a brand in general. You know, have it be something that when they order, if they order again, they know that, you know, that's the bar. And I always say, like in my head, where we're at now is the lowest we'll ever be. And I just want to continually try to improve. And so like it just continues like how can we continue to make it better? And I mean, maybe at some point we'll hit parity of like we don't have to keep going. Like it might be diminishing returns at that point, but I don't know. I don't think we've hit it yet.
Are there any other statements you say to yourself as mantras that repeat in your head over and over again?
Um, Not all that much. I have like I'll tell myself like on harder days when like you're either just tired or whatever, you just gotta like grind it out.
Mm.
Like some days you just gotta grind out. Some processes you just gotta grind out. And while it might seem kind of fruitless in the moment, like all that kind of stuff builds up over time and will help you kind of get to the next level. Or like when you're going through a certain tough period where it feels like everything's falling apart is I think personally is kind of when you're about to level up to that next. Like do not quit there. Just keep pushing through. I mean, who knows how long it'll last, but generally I have noticed when you're gonna kind of elevate one more like once more and then it'll calm down a little bit until it's time to like go up another level.
Hmm. You highlighted on Twitter, in order to train as hard as possible, you must maintain a clear image of your purpose.
Hmm.
That was a Mike Metzner quote.
Yeah.
What's your purpose?
That's a good question. Right now, I think like I just love making quality products. And then that's kind of like from a business standpoint is make quality products. And then people have always asked like, well, what's the goal for the business? And it's hard to say, right? Like I've always said I want to take care of the people around me. I think that would bring me the most possible joy in the world, just like making sure everybody around me that I care about, family and close friends, are just good. Um, but yeah, just make the best quality products that we can and kind of buck the trend of brands just trying to completely rake over their customer and everything for a dollar type deal.
Mm.
I wanted to be a brand that people are like, this he cares about what he's doing, and he's not just here to try to make as much money as possible. That's the same reason that when we offer a new product that we haven't um, ever released before, like a lot of the time I'm selling it at break even because
Mm.
I'm like, I believe in it so much and I believe the quality is there that when you get it at the price of break even, it's going to be so good. You're going to tell somebody about it. And the next time I release it, I will build in margin there. Like, so you get the nice starter price for taking a chance on us, but I promise you the quality's there. And then when we re-release something, the price, I'll increase the price, or I'll have economies of scale, make like more of them and build in margin that way.
You said you want to take care of the people around you
Yeah.
as one of the sources of your ambition.
Mm.
What else? What else is at the heart of why you're doing what you're doing?
I think it's as from like a physical standpoint and maybe even more now a business standpoint. I want to just explore kind of where is my like potential ceiling?
Mm.
Like as far as running goes, it was always like, well, where is the genetic ceiling that I'm kind of at? And there's people that are of the mindset that there is no such thing as like a genetic limit or like people have a genetic advantage. I think in a pure sport like running, there are gifted runners who like either process oxygen better, have like produce lactate like a lot slower, and so they genetically are just better. But a lot of people aren't going to explore like trying to get to that point of, all right, well, I'm topping out here. And in running, it's kind of like you're against a clock. You have a window of when you could be a good fast runner. And I'm not saying everybody's got to try to be a good fast runner. Like it's just how I approach it. But it's just like a constant desire to improve upon what you've built. I have like this building blocks analogy that I've talked about before of like each day you add a brick, right? And eventually over time, you look back down and you're like, holy shit, like I'm standing on quite a mountain of bricks here. But it's just try to add a brick every single day. Like don't squander anything just for the sake of doing nothing. Resting is good. Like rest is important at times, but I just mean it in more a sense of like don't be lazy, and like if the day is hard and you don't want to go do it, like a lot of the times, I don't wake up, I don't flinging myself out of bed and I'm like, I can't wait to run 12 miles on a Wednesday morning before an entire day of work where we have a release. But it's like those are the moments where callous, like David Goggins talks about, callous your mind. Like you just have to, that shit has to make you numb and you just will yourself through it. And then anytime like hard stuff comes up in business that's not like physically hard, that helps you a little bit.
Mm.
Going through physically hard things helps you like just mentally callous and be ready to just deal with whatever's thrown at you.
Love that. You said on Twitter as well, everything starts as a vision board.
Mm.
And I got one of your vision boards that you tweeted here. I don't know
Yeah.
if this is yours or.
That's the vision board for our Speed 4 from Saucony.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you want to. What are these things on there? Could you describe them? We'll flash it on the screen as well.
Yeah, so everything kind of the overarching theme is like movement. Right? Like all these pictures kind of display movement in one way or another. And like you can obviously the F1 car, those those things are fast, but even that, like I think it's the S7 SR-71 Blackbird or whatever. Like that thing is a marvel in human engineering. And I just thought it was so insane. Like it's sitting there standing still, but it can just wreak havoc like when it's in the air and you see the astronauts there. Like it's a powerful image just because of how much power is behind that machine and those two people that like are gonna operate it. And then so yeah, there's like motion in everything in these pictures. There's power in like the person who's under the bike, and then the people to the right of the bike, like just like strong, powerful. And then yeah, just the whole theme for the shoe is I just wanted to look fast.
Mm.
And so that's I needed to get like images that I can look at and be like, okay, that's those look fast to me.
Have you always done vision boards? And is this something, and how should somebody go about creating one for themselves?
I guess start with an idea, right? So for us, it was like motion and speed.
Mm.
And then you can kind of, I guess, use Google, like Pinterest, Arena, like, and find images somehow using like search terms of things that you think kind of fit that idea. And recently, I had a big painting that I had done years ago hanging across from my bed on the wall and pulled it off. And I just stuck foam board on the whole wall. And so the whole thing, I just have shit tacked to. And so I see it every single day, like whether I acknowledge it or subconsciously, I see it. It's there, and it's either like sketches or fabrics or like things that relate to stuff we're working on. And I like aesthetically it doesn't look great in my bed. Like my bedroom is like kind of like pseudo warehouse slash. Now it's just like all those foam boards with all that stuff on there, but yeah, I think it's good to just have a place, whether it's online or on a physical foam board, of things that you're either aspiring to get to, or I mean, it could be anything, right? If it was like a life mood board, maybe like you're into certain things and you want to vacation in a certain spot, or you want to buy something down the road, or like you can vision board all of that, just find an image that makes you feel how you think you feel in the moment of achieving it and then throw it on there and then look at it every now and again and just or do it once at the beginning of the year and just have it somewhere for the rest of the year and then see like are we working toward that at the end of the year, going back to the whole goal setting thing.
Have you done that successfully in the past where the things you've put on a board have come to life?
Yeah, well, a lot of the business stuff, yeah, because like we can pretty much bring any sketch to life. It's just a matter of time and figuring out, some are more difficult than others. Um, I don't vision board as much like life goal stuff.
Why not?
I don't know. I probably should a bit more, but I'm not like one of the I'm not my goals for my life aren't kind of like tangible items.
Mm.
Like I'm not chasing after like a supercar or like a yacht or like vacation in X place. Like I'd like to visit Tokyo, just because I really, really appreciate the way that Japanese artists and craftsmen like care about their work. That's why I went. That's why we manufacture our sunglasses in Tokyo because like they're handmade and then the attention to detail is incredible. And so I just respect like the whole design culture over there, and the fashion culture over there is crazy as well. But yeah, I don't have like anything to really put on the board, uh I mean I it's not like that I don't like cars or anything. It's just I'm not like I need like this car because my mind changes every day. Like it could be like a new age sports car one day and like a vintage Porsche the next.
To me, it feels like you're chasing feelings as
Yeah,
opposed
yeah,
to physical things
yeah,
or
yeah. Very good.
values.
I think, yeah, and a lot of the time, I think when people think about goals, it's like, um, kind of monetary in some
Mhm.
way, whether it's like vacation or car or whatever. Um,
Life's deeper than that.
yeah, yeah, it's just like even if it was monetary for me, it'd be like how like me spending money on like my friends or my family and doing something for them. Like that shit makes me so giving gifts makes me super happy. Um And I always like try to have like some sneaky like Christmas gifts for my brother and sister and stuff. Even if we all agree to like not exchange gifts. But yeah, like that kind of stuff, being able to like either make their lives a bit easier, or give them like a gift in some way is the stuff that makes me feel good.
Love that. Before we come to a close, I
Mm,
want to ask about running and specifically
yeah.
tips for new runners who want to take it seriously.
Yes.
I'm watching your videos and I'm like, this dude is inspiring me. This dude, I know I could be better in this aspect.
Mm,
So I want to start running. So I ordered a Garmin watch and
okay.
started hitting some miles
Yeah.
and hit me with some tips for new runners.
Yes. I'm gonna preface this by like I am not an elite runner by any stretch of the imagination.
I just did
Work at it.
2,600 miles from 2022 to 2023.
Yeah,
2,600
I
miles.
got a lot of reps under my belt, but there's a lot of people that run a lot more than me,
Yeah.
you know? I think like my biggest tips are to run your easy miles easy. And that's different for everybody. Like an easy run for me would probably not be an easy run for you. And you just have to like go as it like as a percentage feel, right? Like you should have a couple hard training sessions per week. For me right now, it's a harder like progression long run, and I have a track day, and then earlier in the week I have like a tempo shorter run. But all the other miles in between are, and as my coach has written it, it's like either easy on the sheet or any pace. So like if you're feeling good and you want to push it a little bit, you have that like the option to, but generally let's save the gas in the legs and everything for specific training sessions that are like we got to get a little faster, like hill work and any of that. So just take your easy miles slow. Do not rush into like high mileage. I think the generally accepted consensus is 10% increase weekly on like a weekly mileage basis will help prevent a lot of overuse injuries. And I always recommend people to get like a gait analysis and get their foot looked at to figure out what shoes they should actually wear. Because obviously, a lot of people either just buy Nike, Hoka, whatever, and just put them on their feet and run. Like chances are they might not be the shoe that's best for you. And just because, you know, either saw someone you look up to running in it, it doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. The last one I'll give is do not be training in Vaporflies or Alpha Flies from Nike. I don't know why people do that. I am almost 100% positive they should only be raced in or like time trialed in, because I think biomechanically they mess up a lot. So I see people like doing training miles in them. I don't think you should be doing training miles in them.
Why?
I think that they're just made for racing. Like I don't think they're just
Interesting.
made for everyday like just pounding on your feet. They got the carbon plate. Like you don't really need that for everyday stuff.
Got you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much for the tips. Thank you so much for your time here.
Thanks for having me
I
on.
mean, this has been a lot of fun. I like to end these podcasts with challenges for people. I ask the
Okay.
guest a challenge from something we've talked about or something we haven't, for someone to take something in their life and actually do something with the conversation we had.
Mhm.
Does a challenge come to mind for an action step we can leave people with?
Maybe two, I think. If you were listening and found that you might have been someone who was younger and creative when you were younger and got away from it, maybe just like explore it a little bit. You know, maybe your interests have changed as far as creativity. Maybe it's drawing when you were younger, but maybe it's writing now. And you don't have to publish it, you know, or post your work like publicly. Just like find a creative outlet and see if you still enjoy it at all. Maybe you don't, you know, and that's fine. And maybe that's the only challenge, you know. You could do like a, you know, running stuff, but everybody runs for different reasons. And I think like giving yourself a goal sometimes burns people out of running. So I was going to give a challenge there, but I don't think it's conducive for a lot of people. You know, I don't want to burn people out.
Understood.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I was actually curious about with the running piece of
Yeah.
it was, should I put some date on the calendar to
I think it's
motivate myself.
easier. I think it's much easier to go through a brutal block of training when you have a nice end goal. Right now, I have no race on the schedule, so I'm just doing all this mileage. And sometimes I'm like, for what? I'm not a professional athlete. Like, why are you out here doing this? I've audibly said that sometimes when I'm going through like a grueling session. Like, I'm out loud. Like, I don't listen to music anymore. And I'm out loud. I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, you're not a professional. What are you doing? Um, but yeah, having
Why do you
something.
do it?
I'm just sick in the head. I don't know. I love like it's the ultimate form of delayed gratification.
Mm.
You have to put like if you give yourself a goal of either like maybe it's completing a marathon, but for me it's like all of my goals are time based in certain distances. And I know that chances are I'm going to have to put in a year of training to try and potentially still fail that goal. And that is like in the day and age of instant gratification, that's a discipline of like, yeah, yeah, you got all this other stuff going on, but you still got to show up every day and like train for this shit if you want to make that a reality. And my biggest problem is, and I've talked about this with my mom, it's like as soon as the thought trickles in my head of like you should try to accomplish this, I'm totally screwed because I know now there's no backing out. Like I have to do it, or I have to at least try to do it. And so, yeah, I'll get like a time goal in my head, and then I know it's like, all right, well, gear up for a block because you're about to have to put in months of work to try.
Marcus, I'm so excited to continue to watch the journey unfold and continue to watch that voice in your head tell you crazy things,
Yeah.
watch you accomplish them, then have you back on the podcast for more and more of that
Yeah, I
journey,
think part two would be fun. I feel like we barely even scratched the surface in a lot of stuff.
which is really exciting. There's a
Yeah.
lot more to explore, and I'm really grateful for you here today. Where should we send people to connect with you further?
I'm just on socials at Marcus Milione. You can find me there, and then from there, you can pretty much figure out everything else that I'm doing for the most part.
I love it. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
man.
thank you, Danny. Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
you.